Imagine if you went from feeling fine every day to feeling amazing. How would your life be different? Everyone has the ability to feel amazing again and again. You just need the right tools to get there. If you're ready to feel amazing, stick around. Now, here's the host of the I'm Not Fine show with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns.
Welcome back to the I'm Not Fine show. I am your host, Lizzie Enns, and today I have a very dear and amazing friend, colleague, peer on the show with me, Melissa Hergert. I'm so incredibly excited for this conversation. I've wanted to have this conversation for a very long time because we're talking about brains today. Melissa Hergert is a genius, and I just love everything that you are doing with your business. But let me tell you just a little bit about her and what she's doing, and then we're gonna dive into this show today and just talk about brains, neurofeedback, and all the things, the brain and overall health too. So Melissa is the CEO of Brain Train Center. And this is a franchise. She is like blowing up the industry. I feel like every month I see that you have a new location.
Yes.
I'm board certified neurofeedback and Amen brain health coach, which I'm a huge fan of Amen, Doc Amen. She is the mother of two girls, a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old, and she has owned Brain Train Center since 2013 and has grown to multiple offices across the country. She offers consulting for other neurofeedback providers as well as a brain better from a neurofeedback perspective. Melissa, welcome to the show. I'm so
Thank you. I'm so excited too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I really want to dive into what got you started first. Like I want to know why were you so interested in the brain? And then I really want to dive after that, we're going to dive into the health of the brain and what you see on a day-to-day basis. I'm really fascinated by this because I am by no means a brain expert, but I'm fascinated by the brain. So what got you into neurofeedback therapy?
Yes, I actually was not so interested in the brain growing up. I was more interested in being a chiropractor. And that's actually what led me to it. You know, the brain and the spine are the central nervous system. And I always thought that when I grow up, I'm going to be a chiropractor. So I went to chiropractic school in Marietta, Georgia. And then about a year in, I decided I don't want to be a chiropractor. So I
Why? Why did you want to be a chiropractor after that?
I didn't want to touch people all day.
Oh, that's so funny.
No, I knew that I was supposed to be in the health field. I was supposed to offer a service, own a business that offered a service that was going to allow people to heal from the central nervous system. And so my whole career up until chiropractic school was working for chiropractors. So I said, well, if I'm not going to be one, my most experience is working for them. I'm going to go work for one again until I figure out what I want to do with my life. And I found a chiropractor in Georgia, in Norcross, Georgia, about 30 something miles from where I lived. And he hired me at a, great starting hourly rate. And I was his front desk person and helped a little bit in the back office. And then I was like, what's that brain stuff you have going on? So he actually had neurofeedback in his office. And that's how I was
Really?
introduced to. Yep.
And this
Yeah.
was a long time ago.
This was 11 and a half, almost 12 years ago.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
it was even that popular.
Yes, definitely. So
Would you
he had,
say would
Mhm.
you say that people are becoming more and more and more aware of it? And if so, why is that?
They are. They're becoming more aware because it's getting more mainstream. When some famous person does it, it becomes pretty popular. So, recently, an athlete named Kirk Cousins, he's a quarterback in Minnesota.
Mhm.
He is on a show on Netflix called Quarterback, and they follow these quarterbacks around, and he's been the most influential just this past year with doing it on the show, showing how he's improved his peak performance, attention, and just overall mental health using neurofeedback.
Wow. So this is really, really fascinating because now we're going into the body's ability and how we can do that without using drugs and medication. And he's an athlete. And so some of the lines that they have to walk in terms of not using certain type of supplements because it can show up as, a drug or it's a stimulant. And this is completely different where he's not doing that, but it's enhancing his performance. That's wildly incredible. I'm so fascinated about it. When I went to holistic health school, that was back in 2016. That's when I got introduced to Doc Amen.
Yeah.
And I was so fascinated with his teachings. And I have some of his books and I just like listen to like what he has to say, and he has a psychology background to it as well, but it's really, really fascinating. So what got you were in the chiropractor's office, you got into like, we're curious about the brain there. Where did things go from there?
Yeah, so I worked for him for about a year and a half, and I obviously was like, I love this brain neurofeedback stuff. Let me help you grow this part of your business. Because he had, someone working for him that was just there, doing the day-to-day stuff, but no one really growing that part of the business. So I said, let me just have a little more authority and I'll go out and network and build your business. So I started doing that, and I grew his business to double the size in less than a year. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's because I loved it so much. It wasn't
Yeah.
just because, I wanted to see that I could do it. It's because I loved it so much. So when I talked about it, people felt my passion
Mhm.
and excitement about it. And then I realized, like, I've always wanted to own my own business. I am very passionate. I still get the goosebumps when I talk about it. 10 years later, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
So
That's amazing.
yeah. So I said, all right, I'm going to go start my own business now.
So then you started your own business and you opened your own clinic. What was that process?
Oh gosh, I would not recommend doing it the way I did it, but if you want to know a little bit of the story of it, I had my daughter was 3 years old. I had just turned 30. My husband, he wasn't my husband at the time. My fiance at the time was playing rugby, and rugby players, to be honest, don't make a lot of money, especially in the US. Overseas they do. So we were pretty poor. Like, I was working $17 an hour for the chiropractor, I didn't have money to save or anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I come from not great a background, so I didn't learn about business or money saving. So I actually enrolled back in school so I could get a student loan check to start my business because I couldn't get approved for a business loan.
Oh man, I mean, seriously, we have so much in common in a completely like just the way that you've done things. I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday about what it takes to start a business, and in most people, a lot of people are really scared to make that investment initially and maybe even go into debt in order to start their business. But if you have a passion and this is what you're supposed to be doing, that investment that you make into your business is going to make it back in no time.
Absolutely.
And it shouldn't scare you because you believe in what you have to offer. If you are more scared about the debt that you're acquiring to start your business and build your business, then you got to ask yourself, like, what are you really passionate about? And is this the route that you want to go? Because if you believe in the passion and you know that this is what you want to do, it shouldn't be an issue. So
Absolutely.
that is absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
you opened your own clinic back in
2013, and I had a $4,000 student loan check. No
Wait,
money
you started
saved.
your business with a $4,000 student loan check?
Mhm. That's it. That's it. No
You
money
opened your own facility.
saved.
Wow. How did you rent a place?
I rented a small office inside of a chiropractic office because that's what I knew, and I thought, what a great idea. And then it was quite expensive, like 700 for one room, and it was like way in the
Mm,
back of the office. And I'm like, this is silly. So um, I immediately, the first month I opened, I mean, I started hitting the ground, like getting everyone in the community. I opened up in Marietta, Georgia, which is right by the chiropractic school.
mhm.
I had lived there a little bit already, so I had already started creating a community, but not a
Yeah.
business community. I was the part of a college community, which none of
Yeah.
them had any money. So I'm like, great, what do I do now? Like, I need to find other business owners to network with. I need to get my name out there, find clientele. So the first month, I got my first client and she paid in full. So that covered my next two,
Oh
couple
my
months.
gosh.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get into, we want to definitely get into like the treatments and the things that you offer, but you've turned this into a franchise.
Yeah, so I gotta tell you, it's not a franchise, it's called a licensing. So there's a
Okay.
difference between a franchise and a licensing. So franchise, I would have to create this huge, like go through a franchise board and do all that. And I looked into it when I thought about doing this, I was like, how can I grow, keep it affordable, and then allow the partners that are coming in that want to buy into the business to still feel like it's their own, but still represent my company. So that's what a
Okay.
licensing does. So for example, like Starbucks is not a franchise, it's a licensing. So
Interesting. I did not know that.
yeah, I did tons of research to figure out how to do it. Should I do a franchise? Should I do a licensing? And it's just so many rules when you create a
Yeah.
franchise. And I don't want to be like the boss of everyone. It almost seems like that when you own a franchise,
Mhm.
so this gives more freedom. They still represent my company that I created, but they could also make it a little bit of their own. They have more freedom to maybe work with certain families at a discounted price if they need it, things like
Yeah.
that. They don't have to check with me. But they do still use like my logo. They're all listed on the website. They all, represent the company, but in their own way.
That's
So
amazing. I actually I find that super fascinating. How many locations do you guys have now?
22.
I feel like I just met you like less than a year ago and you had what, how many?
Oh, so that is it. When I met you, I had just started the process of licensing. So the first 9 years of my business was just me. At one point, I owned four of my own. And I was like, how do I keep growing, but not do this on my own? Because I'm exhausted. I don't want to
Yeah.
keep hiring people. I don't want to keep paying rent at all these different places. So how do I get neurofeedback around the country and it not just be me? And I was like, I'm going to start licensing. So last year when I met you, I think it had only been like 2 months. I think we met in like March, right? Something
Yeah,
like
we met in May.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
May. So I had been 4 months into it, 4 to 5 months into it. Our first office opened January of last year out in Hawaii, actually. That was our very first one. Yeah.
Look at this. Now you have 22 locations
Yeah, in 1 year. 1 year.
in
Yeah.
1 year. Where do you see that going this year? Like,
So people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, my goal for this year is to have 100.
I believe you'll do it. I
Thank you.
100%
I
believe
knew
you'll do
you
it.
would.
Like you are like unstoppable.
Yeah.
With the things that you're doing, I feel it. And it's so funny because I had a conversation with someone yesterday and we were talking about growth in
Uh-huh.
business and in, where things are going and what. And I threw a number out there and I said, this is a goal, but like the extra goal is this. And so like,
Yeah.
it's very, very possible and very doable. I 100% believe that is doable for you because you have and it's becoming so popular that more and more people like this is needed. And we're going to get into that. We got to go to our first break here. But when we come back from our break, now we're going to start getting into what the actual heck is neurofeedback therapy and what does that process looks like? Who does it help? Who is it for? And what the results are that you are seeing. So we're going to go to our first break here, but when we come back, it's going to get juicy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform, streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
All right, welcome back, you guys. We are going to dive right into here. First of all, before we get into this next phase, Melissa, I don't want to get too deep into this conversation before you tell people where they can find you, because I want people to know where they can find you. We're going to have all of that stuff in the show notes too, but where's the best place for people to find you and even to look up this neurofeedback? Tell us where that is.
The best place is our website. It's braintraincentersinc.com. So it's a little bit long, but lots of great information. We have a new podcast coming out soon, blogs on there, and then you can find every location listed on there as well.
I know, I saw that the other day and I was like, this is beautiful. Like going through all the locations. That's awesome. I've actually sent people to your website that have either kids or themselves that are like, hey, they probably should go and visit a location. So it's really awesome to have all those locations on there. So I want to get into what neurofeedback therapy is. So take it away, Melissa. Tell us what it is and why it's so good for us.
It's amazing. So it's actually been around a long time. It's been around since the 1960s. It was created for seizure disorders to begin with. So they started doing more and more research, and they recognized, so the whole therapy is to do with your brainwave activity. So we have specific brainwaves that happen when the neurons fire, and we can measure those, kind of like a sleep study, but while you're awake. And so back in the day, they would do research and find out, if certain brain activity was either increase or decrease, it could eliminate seizures. And then they started doing more and more research. Can this help with insomnia, anxiety, depression, all these neurological symptoms that arise throughout our life based on traumas, food, exercise, all what we talk about when it comes to health. Yeah, so that's what we do. The main process is this. When someone comes to an office, they come in and they do something called a QEEG, kind of a short term for, it's called quantitative electroencephalogram. And all that means is that we're taking data from the brain activity, just like a sleep study, but while you're awake. And we're recording the brain activity while your eyes are closed and while your eyes are open. It takes about 25-30 minutes, painless. You do put this kind of, I don't have one with me, but you put a funky looking cap on that has sensors in it. And then those sensors record at 12 different areas of the brain. So we really just want to see, how is the brain firing? Is it firing too fast, too slow? Areas that could just be kind of idle. And we need to figure out what's going on and why. So that's the first.
That's amazing. I actually saw you do that. I have yet to do it. I'm still like dying to do it at some point. And it's going to happen, but I saw you do that for someone else. But I'm curious. So if you were to run that test on someone, let's just say they're super highly functional, and that high function is what helps them be successful in what it is that they do. What is your recommendation around that when you see that?
Right. So we've had very few come in that way, because most people might even think they're high functioning, but then they realize when they see this assessment done and you see how the brain's actually firing, they're recognizing maybe they're not getting as good a sleep as they thought. And when you get better sleep, you could function even better, things like, or, maybe, your brain's functioning fast, but it's functioning too fast at the wrong time. So it never shuts down. So you might get burnt out eventually. So the ones that did come in where their brain looked pretty healthy for the environment that we live in, they take very good care of themselves. They eat healthy, they exercise, they do their meditations and things like that. They're able to relax. Those brains do look very good on an assessment. And what we could offer is just peak performance type of therapy with the neurofeedback, where they're just keeping their brain healthy or continue. It's kind of like, okay, a fit person still works out, don't they?
Yeah.
Because we want to keep that going. As we age, there's degeneration that happens. So we want to make sure that we're keeping that healthy and keeping more of a, that it's wellness at that point. We're not fixing something, we're taking care of what's already well.
I love that. And one of the things that when I was at an event where you spoke on this whole thing and you were talking about the different waves like beta, delta, alpha, and there's a fourth one, right?
Yes, theta. And there's actually 5, but our system only records 4. But yes, delta, theta, alpha, and beta. And that's the order from slow to fast.
Okay, so delta is fast.
Nope, delta's slow.
Delta slow. Yeah, delta slow. Yeah, delta, because delta waves are like what's supposed to like make you go to sleep. You know what's really interesting? I have tried using delta waves to like sleep with. I cannot. It
You
keeps me
can't.
awake. Yeah.
Here.
Like I will not go into REM sleep to the point where I don't keep waking up and hearing the music, which was like really interesting to me because I was like, I sleep with a sound machine and that like helps me. I love the sound of it, but I was like, let me just try delta wave sleep music. I couldn't do it. I slept terrible. And I was like, I wonder why that is.
We got to do a brain assessment on you.
I know. Because generally I don't have any issues sleeping, but I will tell you this. I had this company sent me a supplement called Kill Switch. And it's all natural. It's a drink, it's a powder that you make a drink out of, and it has some GABA in it, some L-theanine, the cocoa, and then magnesium and calcium. And then tart cherry, which is a natural form of melatonin, but it's only about 5%. Like it's not much at all. And when I drink that at night, within 30 minutes, I want to go to bed. Like I'm like fading, I'm going to bed, going to sleep. But I noticed that I go into REM sleep a lot harder, and I have some of the most craziest dreams sometimes. And I'm like, I know some people can't do melatonin because their dreams become so vivid. I've always wondered why that is. But that only happened to me for the first, few nights. And then the dream, I kept taking the stuff and the dreams started to dissipate where I didn't experience the dreams as much. But I noticed that I wake up more rested. So like if I get my full like 7 to 8 hours of sleep, even though I may have had some dreams, my body feels more rested when I wake up.
Yes, good. And you should have some dreams. Actually, a lot of people say, like, I don't dream, but you should actually have dreams and you should go through those sleep cycles. What people are usually missing out on is getting into that really deep delta wave, which is no dreaming. And that's where your brain and body heal the most. Actually, during that time, good hormones flood into the brain and wash away the toxins that we've accumulated throughout the day. So if people aren't getting into that delta, deep sleep, then a lot of times they're not healing.
Yeah. I usually tell people, like, if you're not getting sleep, your body's not actually able to detox and heal.
Exactly.
And it's exactly what you just said. It's like your hormones can't go in there and clean out the things that you're basically in your deepest sleep, you're paralyzed. And that's when your body is not, actively trying to do things physically. So when you're paralyzed, that it can actually do its job. So one of the top things that I work with on my clients is sleep. Like, what are you doing to make sure that you are having good sleep habits, making sure that we're getting steps in place for that. And when they start sleeping better, it translates over into the rest of your day the next day. You feel better when you wake up. And I've had people that have told me, like, I haven't slept this good in 15 years. And that is when the body can heal. But if someone has like really hard trouble, like going to sleep and or staying asleep, what are some things that you typically recommend or maybe even would suspect?
Yes, most likely their brain is stuck in that high beta pattern, the fastest pattern. It usually has to do with anxiety. a lot of times. Now, it doesn't mean they have panic attacks or they're anxious all the time, but when your brain is stuck in that fight or flight state, that very fast pattern, it's hard to fall asleep and it's hard to stay asleep. So that's what we see a lot of times with people that do complain when they come in with insomnia. If it's not a hormonal thing or a metabolic issue, then it most likely is that their brain neurologically cannot shut down. So that's when, of course, we recommend the therapy part of our service.
Yeah, retraining the brain and knowing how to retrain the brain as well, and the therapy that you guys do. Yeah.
Yeah. So the therapy is very different than what I explained. I don't know if you know this and how the therapy works. Do you want me?
I know a little bit, but I want you to walk us through that because I don't know a ton. I know you do therapy, but I don't know a ton about the process of that.
Yes. Okay. So we don't do talk therapy. We're not counselors. I mean, some of my partners are counselors, so they add that in as well.
Mhm.
A lot of times I explain it this way, like neurofeedback works on the hardware, counselors, coaches, journaling, all the good stuff that we do, meditation works on the software. So there's a big difference. Yes. So when we can assess how the brain is functioning, we could see where in the brain is working too fast or too slow. So our therapy addresses just that. We address the hardware of the brain. And the way we do it is through audio-visual feedback. So the best way for me to describe it is this. A client comes in, they're ready to start the neurofeedback. They're going to come in just like going to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. They're going to come into the office, or they could rent an in-home unit from us as well.
Mhm.
Either way. So they come in, they're going to put sensors on the scalp. Now, these sensors, they don't shock, they don't add any magnetic therapy or anything like that. But according to what we see on the initial assessment, is going to tell us what part of the brain needs to be worked first. So let's say, for example, it's the frontal lobe. So we put 2 sensors here on the scalp, and they're just pasted on with what's called electropaste. And then they sit in a chair and they watch a screen in front of them. And they're watching their favorite show, their favorite movie, whatever it is that they enjoy. Okay. So as they're watching, our software is monitoring their brain activity, and it has certain threshold patterns that we want their brain to go into. Every time it goes into those patterns that we want more of or less of, then the screen in front of them is going to be nice and bright. They're watching their show, they're watching Friends, right? And their screen in front of them is nice and bright, and the volume's nice and loud in the headphones. As soon as their brain goes into the negative pattern that it's used to working in, the screen turns dark and the volume actually goes down. So the brainwave activity is in control of the feedback that they're getting. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredibly fascinating because I'm just thinking about people that deal with trauma, and they have PTSD and what this can do for them. Like
Mhm.
that. So we're going to go to our next break here in a minute, but what I want to talk about, like that, this is just absolutely fascinating because I'm thinking like I do a lot for my health. I work out, I eat well, I don't drink a lot.
Right.
And take vitamins, supplements, all of that stuff. But
Mhm.
I'm thinking to myself, if I did a scan and I knew like where my certain parts of my brain need attention, it would just enhance everything.
Exactly.
And that part, it comes down to like wellness. And I'm just thinking about, the football player that you were mentioning. Like, if you can tap into that, it's almost like breaking a cycle of like not knowing what you actually need. And the brain is so incredibly powerful. Now, I know, I think I've had this conversation with you before. Like, you guys don't necessarily give any kind of nutritional advice or guidance in that area, do you?
Well, we on our report, when we do the initial assessment, according to how the brain is functioning, it comes up with a supplement list. So
Okay.
that's when we refer out. We are not specialists in supplementation, but a lot of it is like the L-theanine and things like that.
Mhm.
So that's when we refer to people like you to be able to do those extra testing. We do a metabolic checklist as well. So if that comes up with a high score, we're going to refer out. We don't want to take on someone who needs to fix hormones, metabolics, things like that before we start working the brain, because it's going to take a lot longer for the brain
Yeah.
to adjust. Yeah.
Yeah, because they all go hand in hand. So I'm just thinking like if he needs a lot of brain work and help and therapy with that, But if you're eating fast food every day and living a sedentary lifestyle, you're kind of like throwing money in the trash can because you're not like helping the entire process. It's sort of like, when I work with people, it's like, hey, without the testing, we don't properly know what you actually need, what your body is low in, your vitamins, your minerals. What are we trying to fight or feed here? And with the testing, it allows us to look at that and then have a whole body approach with it. So that's another area that I think from the beginning, I told you when the first time we met and we talked about this, I was like, what are you guys doing in that aspect? And I think that could be like a whole different avenue that can get touched to help these people even more. So
Yes.
absolutely phenomenal. We're going to go to our next break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about the people, the ideal clients. Who are the people that this is helpful for the most, like what they're struggling with? What is that? Who is that? And then I also want to just talk about, some of the most transformative things that are clients that you guys have had and what that has done for them. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm Lizzie Enns, your host on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network.
We often get used to just feeling fine instead of reaching to feel excellent or even good. Wellness is about feeling good, and that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, we're just going to keep diving into this because I swear we could have like a 2-hour conversation about this, but we only have an hour and we have less than 30 minutes left to cover the things that we need to cover. Okay. I want to get into what I mentioned before the break. Who is this for? And who needs to go to a brain train center if they have specific things going on? So take it away, Melissa.
Yes. So we see everyone from age 5 and up. So it's not just for children. A lot of people think that 5 is usually the youngest. We have seen a little bit younger than 5 if they can sit still for that long, but usually 5 is the youngest. Our eldest client is 86. So,
Wow.
And everywhere in between. So anyone from people dealing with ADHD issues, which a lot of people are dealing with attention issues and they think that it's ADHD. A lot of times it's not. It's usually something more like processing disorder or anxiety or even depression sometimes can cause attention issues, right? Yeah. So as young as that with ADHD, autism, sensory processing, all the way up to the elderly, pre-dementia. We can work with like dementia and Alzheimer's, but there's no solid research that shows that it reverses anything. It does slow the process though. So there is that. Helps with sleep, of course, insomnia and anxiety. So we see a lot of teens and college age students with like test anxiety or even social anxiety at this point in our world. A lot of people are dealing with that. So those are some of the biggest. Other one really big we work with is concussions. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say like concussions or PTSD,
mhm.
traumatic, if someone has a really, really had a really, really traumatic childhood and growing
Yes.
up and had like a lot of things happen and that carries over into our adult life, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
I could see that. Or what about veterans? Like if someone served and they're dealing with PTSD.
Yes, we actually have a nonprofit side of the business. I don't know if you know that.
I did know that, but I didn't remember which one it was.
So it's called Healing Our Heroes. We started it 7 years ago, and it was to help our veterans. Both my partner, my initial partner, and mine, who opened the first office in San Diego, we started Healing Our Heroes. We're both from military families.
Mm-hmm.
A few years after that, we added first responders. So firefighters, police, EMT. Now, that is for people that truly can't afford the service, and we will offer free service for them for, a quarter. Most people are with us for about 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
So, yep.
Yeah.
So we
So
do.
you're able to offer that to our heroes for 3 months. That's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
What has the result been of that? Like if you have someone that comes to you and they have PTSD from serving and
Mhm.
what have you seen with that?
Well, as you probably know, a lot of us know, many of them don't want to relive or talk
Yeah.
about those types of experiences. And so, they've done the counseling, they've done other therapies, which we highly encourage they continue to do those therapies. This is not to replace any of those
Yeah.
therapies. Like you said earlier, we call it one tool in the toolbox to your
Yeah.
health. So, and a lot of times because you are improving your hardware, it does bring everything together. And these other therapies that you do just ignite, like work
Mhm.
so much better when your brain works better, right?
Yeah.
So some of the most amazing parts we've seen is like, veterans who have lived a lot of trauma and they've done everything and they can't sleep at night and they're just like angry all the time, like on the verge of divorce, and their kids don't even want to be around them. And then they start doing neurofeedback and it's like emotions arise. It's almost like when you deal with a trauma, it locks down in the brain. And when you start to unlock it in a very calm, easy way where you're not reliving it, but you're retraining those pathways to process it in a different way, it starts to bubble up and then just release, which is so cool.
Mm.
It really just releases, and they do talk to their counselors about it during the process because we're, like I said, most of us aren't licensed counselors. We have a
Yeah.
couple that are, but it's just amazing when you're doing neurofeedback. Like I said, it processes information in a different way and in a new pathway. So it's like they're
Yeah.
not having to relive it. They're just processing it in a healthier way.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is like you're building new highways in the brain.
Exactly. That's what
That
we
is
do.
literally like what's coming to my mind is like you're
Yeah.
redirecting. And so, I mean, we know like trauma and PTSD is our emotions stored in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And when those things are suffocated and pinned down, yes, you are going to become an angry person because that reflects on the body. It's like I teach my clients, like, if you have certain things going on with organs in the body, there's an emotion attached to that.
Yeah.
If you have kidney failure, kidney stones, there's fear attached to that. If you have anger, their anger can live in the liver.
Yeah.
Anger and resentment can live in the pancreas. So you can literally have so much resentment and anger that you end up with pancreatitis.
Yeah.
And those are emotions. And then, lungs, I forget what lungs is or the ribs area. There's things there too, but every organ has some emotion attached to it. And so most illnesses and autoimmunes and ailments and things like even cancer, like there's an emotion attached to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And but a lot of people don't know that. Like we
Yeah.
just look at the physical aspect of the body, but when you really think about it, like the book The Body Keeps Score. I
Yeah.
have never read the entire book because it's too slow for me, but like
Yeah.
I'll take pieces out of it and I
Yes.
I like learning about it. So this is really really fascinating when you said it brings things up, but in a calming way. And the first thing that came to mind is like they're just building new highways in their brain,
That's
and
it.
there's new neural pathways. It's phenomenal.
It's amazing. And what's really cool is that, the initial assessment I talked about, after we do a certain amount of neurofeedback sessions, we do another one, and our software can actually show the percentage of change and where the changes happened in the brain.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the cool part because it's all data. That, a lot of people, it sounds like so woo-woo and weird, right? But the reality is this is science. This is data from the brain. We check our heart rate, we check our blood, we check our hormones. Why not check the brain, which runs the body? It's like this is something everyone, even if you just did the assessment of how your brain's functioning, could give you so much information about things that you need to change in your life. And it might not be doing neurofeedback. It might be working your metabolics out, figuring out what's going on with that, hormones, whatever it may be. So this is just something that I feel everyone should be part of, like their annual checkup every year,
Oh my gosh. I cannot disagree with that. I
Right.
just can't. Especially for little kids. So like I want to talk a little bit about kids with that come and they're saying, hey, they're on the spectrum of autism or ADHD. My first question is, how much do you think that people that assume or think that they have ADHD, how much do you think our social media and technology has an impact on that?
Oh, huge. I mean, there's so much. And also, I mean, we could get into a huge conversation about this, but as you know, ADHD is so overdiagnosed,
Yes.
especially in our children. And it's even younger and younger, as young as like 2 and 3 years old.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's crazy. And they're putting them on meds that young. It's so
So
sad. And
kids.
I don't think a lot of people in the world know this, but ADHD meds are a methyl drug, which are a stimulant drug. So here's the thing. Did you know that?
No.
Okay, so it's one chemical bond away from a methyl drug, like a street meth drug, right? And they're putting children on this. And the reason that someone's going to be put on a stimulant drug is because the actual fact is if you have ADHD, like true classic ADHD, that means your brain is functioning too slow. Everyone's like, yeah, well, everyone says, I have ADHD, my brain never shuts down. That is not ADHD. That's a form of anxiety with attention issues. Because why in the world would you stimulate an overstimulated brain that can't shut down with a methyl drug, which is an ADHD med? You don't. But the problem is they don't do data testing like QEEGs like what we do. They just do, subjective test. Can you pay attention? Get information from the teachers, get info from the parents. They're just stressed out. They're like, they never calm down. The reason kids with true classic ADHD don't calm down, like they're hyper, they tap, they disrupt, is because their brain needs stimulation. So
The brain's bored.
yeah, the brain is bored. The brain's sleepy. It's in the delta theta waves, actually. It's actually in sleepy brain pattern while they're awake. So when you take a stimulant drug, it connects to those, pathway, the little connectors in the brain. And then that stimulates the brain into the fast wave pattern for that amount of time that the drug is there.
Productivity.
Yeah. So that's why it works. Of course it works, but
Wow.
it's not meant for everyone, and it actually can become very addictive.
It can. Yeah. And the other part too is I have actually helped parents that had kiddos in school and the kiddos could not focus in school. They were causing trouble in the classroom. They had poor grades. But they didn't want to put them on medication. They were just like, I don't think that's the answer. And so what we actually did is we looked at what was their diet like? What were
Yes.
they eating? Were they having food dyes? Were they having a lot of sugar? Do they have any essential fatty acids in their diet? What do they need? And I'm telling you, like I've had so many people that they cut out food dyes and they cut out most highly processed foods with sugars and all of that. I taught them how to get their kid to understand how important protein is. And
Yes.
got protein into their diet, healthy fats into their diet, and they start eating fruits and vegetables, and getting the things in that they need to.
Yep.
and then got them on, really good fish oil that supports the brain and some other vitamins that we knew that they were needing. And it like completely changed the kid's life.
Yes.
And the thing about that is if you're going to do that for your kiddo, then you have to let your kid have the education piece behind it. Now, I'm not saying you need to sit down and be like, listen, this
Mhm.
is, these are all the things that are in here. Here's why. My kiddo's 5. He knows what protein is, and he knows that we don't eat food dyes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
he's okay with that because I've taught him protein helps your brain, helps make you nice and strong, and food dyes can cause inflammation on the brain
Yes.
and make you sick. And he knows
Yes.
that. And that's okay. It's our job as parents to teach them that. But if you have a kiddo that you feel like is just out of control, one of the number one things that I would recommend is look at the food that they're having. Are they having loads of food dye? Red 40 and blue are the 2 worst ones.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cut those out.
I will say probably even more so over the digital, the phones and computers, the nutrition is number one. I literally will come in and, we ask that, like, how do you feel you eat, things like that, because on the brain assessment, it'll actually show possible hyperglycemia. Almost I'm telling you, almost every single person that comes in, it shows up possible hyperglycemia, because you really have to look at how the majority of our society eats. It's horrible. But people think they're eating healthy because they're not educated like we have educated ourselves, and don't understand, like, eating cereal and bagels for breakfast is sugar throughout the day. It's breaking down to sugar. We don't eat cereal in our home. And I, like, as moms, part of me is like, oh, I don't want my clients' parents to feel like I'm judging them, because I'm a busy mom. I have 2 girls. We are not perfect all the time, but I will say we work really hard on, just like you said, eating our proteins, staying away from the dyes, eating the pasture raised organic foods, things like that. I know a lot of people think that that's just more expensive or a scam, but in reality, it's not, because of how much money you're going to spend on your health later in life is going to be way more than what you spend on healthy food right now. And that's the reality. And all of that inflames the brain, and it causes attention issues. It causes depression. It causes anxiety. Like, all that we put into our system can cause those things. And food is our number one. So I'm right on board with you. And we highly recommend that people check that in there, like, really check it.
Yeah, no, it's really, really key. Unfortunately, we have to go to our last break here. So we're gonna go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what some of the top things are. What are, like, we already touched on it a little bit, but let's talk about like 3 to 5 things that people can start doing today if they are in this place. We set 2 things, protein and food dye. So we're gonna add like 3 more things in there that people can start doing right away and start paying attention to if they want to start shifting this in either themselves or the kiddos, because adults need to be paying attention to that equally as much as their kiddos. But we owe it to our kids to teach them these things. All right, guys, we're going to go to our break. When we come back, we're going to give you those tools. Don't go anywhere. I'm Lizzie, your host on the I'm Not Fine show on the Inspired Choices Network.
Feeling good. And that is a journey of continually coming back to what is nourishing and healing for us. Your body is functional and ever-changing, like a pendulum swinging. We must learn how to move with our bodies. Tuning into I'm Not Fine with functional nutrition coach Lizzie Enns will provide you with simple but effective tools that you can use right away, so you can go from feeling just fine to feeling amazing. Listen for I'm Not Fine on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is I'm Not Fine with Lizzie Enns. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Lizzie at undietyourself.live. Now, back to the program.
Awesome. Welcome back, you guys. We're going to finish this show up here strong to give you some more tools that you can put in your toolbox. I just want to encourage you guys to go look up Brain Train Center Inc. And you can find them on Instagram as well. Melissa's pretty active on Facebook too. You can find her on Facebook, Melissa Hergert. I love when you share stuff on there. But let's talk about 3 more things that people can add in. We talked about that protein and we talked about the food dyes. What are 3 more things that people need to start paying attention to or maybe start applying?
So you did bring up obviously the devices, and for both children and adults. First of all, I know it's hard, and like it's different than how we were raised. Like when we went to restaurants, we colored at the table, while we were waiting for the food. We didn't go on devices. And now I look over and there's like babies on devices.
Yeah.
That is so horrible for the brain. I mean, Dr. Amen with the Amen Clinics talks about this. To be honest, I think he said, I don't want to quote exactly, but it's something like 12 and under should not be on a device more than 1 hour a day. And I think it's like 5 and under shouldn't be on devices at all. Like, and that's
Probably.
Yeah, it seems very difficult, but the reality is, so my daughters are 13 and 5. My 5-year-old, when we go on long rides, she'll watch her shows on Netflix or whatever on a device, obviously, because we're driving. But when we go to a restaurant, I literally pull out crayons and paper and we will play games. And it, first of all, brings you closer together as a family, right? You're spending time with each other. So the parents not sitting there on their phone, the kids aren't sitting on their tablets. So it's going to bring better connection in the family, but also great health for the brain to not be on those devices. Also, before bed, especially for adults that do have issues with sleep and anyone in general, the recommendation is at least 1 hour before bedtime, do not go on any devices.
Yep.
So, and if you could plug your phone in outside of your room, even better, because I will say this, people will wake up and immediately grab their phone. And you skip a whole brain activity by doing that. You go straight from like your delta sleep, and then you grab your phone and you go right into beta. When you put that phone in your face, it stimulates the brain so much that you skip theta and alpha, which are like you're waking up and like calm and all that, right? So
anxiety, yeah.
Yep, exactly. It creates anxiety for the rest of the day a lot of times, even if you don't feel like you're like people have said like, but I'm not anxious, but they're like freaking out about, being somewhere on time when they have 45 minutes to spare. That's anxiety. That's a form of anxiety, right? So putting your device away before bed, not grabbing it right when you wake up is a huge benefit that you can see quickly. Obviously, the food we talked about, exercise, of course, we can do. That's great for the brain. There's certain hormones that activate in the brain when you exercise, dopamine, all the good hormones. And specifically, this is another thing I learned from Dr. Amen, is weightlifting, not just cardio, but actual weightlifting. It's not just good for your bones, but it's good for the brain. It's BDNF is a protein or hormone that spikes when you weightlift.
BDNF, that's so interesting. What is the definition of BDNF?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in my course.
Okay, that's really interesting because I swear to you, every single time that I go to the gym and I weightlift and it's a good day, that's when my brain is the most productive and I come up with the most executable ideas.
Yes. It ignites something in the brain when you lift weights. So I can't remember. Maybe I could find it and share a post about it. Actually, I need to do that anyways. But definitely weightlifting. Of course, exercise, walking, things like that are great for you as well. But a combination, at least 30 minutes a day, is what's recommended. So there's that. What else?
I'm going to add in healthy fats because our brain is what?
All fat and water and all the yummy.
60% of our brain is fat.
Yes.
And you need to feed it healthy fats.
Yes.
So I'm going to add that in there. So if you're going to look at healthy fats, you can look at eggs and avocado and really good cheese and grass-fed butter. And if you're talking to me, it's going to be raw milk and cream. Not everybody's comfortable with that, but I am, and it's amazing. Nuts and seeds, if you can handle the nuts and seeds, not everybody can, but figure out what healthy fats are that you can bring in, because not only is it going to feed your gut, it is going to support your brain. So that's a whole other topic that we could get into because of the 90s.
And unfortunately, the society has taught us to eat low fats, and then what they do with that is they add sugar to it, which inflames your brain and your body even more. So I would say stay away from low fat stuff completely.
Well, we got about 15 seconds left. Do you have anything else you want to share to the listeners?
Yeah, go get your brain checked at one of the locations. If there's not one near you, we'll help you find a colleague that we trust and get you to get your brain assessed.
Awesome. We'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the I'm Not Fine show. Lizzie Enns returns Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, have the best week of your life by making choices that take you from feeling fine to feeling amazing.